Our honorable delegate head of the delegation from Kenya, Hon.Farah Malam, will be able to enlighten us about Kenya. We've heard the case study from the US, we've heard 2 case studies from Pakistan, and now from the African continent. I'd like to invite Hon.Farah Malam. He's the former Deputy Speaker of the Kenyan National Assembly. He's an advocate, former advocate of the High Court, present advocate of the High Court, and he is an expert in the constitutional law. He has specialized in federalism and devolution, and he also oversaw the creation of the Kenyan Constitution 2010, which was a very important point in their constitutional history. I remember, Honorable Farah Malam, I came to your country in 2010. That was the time you had made constitutional changes, and that led to devolved government. So although Kenya is a unitary state, we would like to hear from him how they have devolved power and authority in the lower tiers of government. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الذين قالوا ربنا الله ثم استقاموا تتنزل عليهم الملائكة ألا تخافوا ولا تحزنوا وابشروا بالجنة التي كنتم توعدون نحن أولياؤكم في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة ولكم فيها ما تشتهي أنفسكم ولكم فيها ما تدعون نزلا من غفور رحيم ومن أحسن قولا ممن دعا إلى الله وعمل صالحا وقال إنني من المسلمين ولا تستوي الحسنة ولا السيئة ادفع بالتي هي أحسن فإذا الذي بينك وبينه العداوة كأنه ولي حميم وما يلقاها إلا الذين صبروا وما يلقاها إلا ذو حظ عظيم صدق الله العلي العظيم. For those of you who know the religion, I have recited this ayah. For you who know the translation, to ponder over it, and those of you who do not know the translation, to ask the ulama. And this is my advice to my brothers and sisters in Pakistan. Now, let me go to the reason why I'm here. Federalism is basically devolving resources and decisions to the grassroots. The idea is that the center cannot be fully trusted because the center is managed by the majority. And because in a democracy you have differences in political persuasions, in supports, the center can always starve the areas that did not support them in the elections. And because of that, there has to be a certain amount of resources that is devolved from the center or is raised in the periphery that is going to be used by the people in the periphery without any due regard to whether they supported the center or the leadership in the center or not in the first place. That way, you have that kind of a stability. People don't have to fight to death over who controls the country, who becomes the president or who becomes the prime minister. Now, I was taken very much by my brother from Balochistan. I'll give you a small narration about my own life history. As a young man, 15 years old, attending a national school not far from Nairobi, coming from the northeast which borders Somalia, that's when the Pakistan, East and West Pakistan split up, and the Pakistani General Niazi surrendered to Manekshaw in the war when India committed its own forces there. At that time, most of our teachers were either Asians in Kenya or Europeans. I had a teacher who was called Mr. Sharma, who came from India. He said a lot of awful things about Pakistan that time. I got annoyed and I walked out of the class and went to the principal to go and complain that he is saying bad things about somebody whose country which is from my religion. That was an identity which I was socialized to see it as my identity as a Muslim. Then, of course, I also come from a country today which is 100. My neighbors is the country I come from, with about 20% Muslims. But we have so much harmony in that country that you could say, with all our perfections, it is better than my neighbor, which is called Somalia, which is populated by 100% Muslims and 100% Somalis. They find reason to fight one another on clanism, on everything you can imagine. So the sense of identity does not stop anywhere. You're a Muslim, you come Punjabi, you come God knows what, until you get to the family. And that's why many countries that are tribalized do not go far, regardless of what system that's in place. The first time you say, let's have Balochistan, let's have Punjab, let's have Patan, and all these other areas, when you go to Balochistan, you have a reason to divide yourselves again. When you go to, whatever, I was talking to my friend, I have 2 Asian members of parliament who were elected 100% by a constituency that has no Asians. But they were elected on the basis, and they're here with me. I think they can stand up if they're here. Is Dawood here? One of them is there for the 4th term. He is loved by his constituents, and none of them comes from the Indian subcontinent or from Pakistan. But he originally comes from Pakistan himself. So what you need in a devolution and federalism and in a constitution is a way in which you appreciate the content of the character of the political class and what they're able to deliver, as opposed to whether they come from this region or they come from that region or they come from this tribe or this clan, because those ones have never taken us anywhere. Now, we also fought. When I first came to Parliament 30 years ago, as a very young man, I asked a question in Parliament how much money was given to my own region, which is 1/3 of the country, for development. For 30 years, it was only $5 million. Fought very hard for devolution. Do you know how much my region gets right now per year? $400 million. I can tell you that $5 million, which came from the center 30 years ago, has had more impact in the region than the $500 million that we get annually. What does that tell you? That tells you that devolution in itself, regardless of how well the constitution is constructed, is not the roadway to peace and development for the people out there who are fearing the marginalization from the center. It's a question of how that money is used. And that, because of elections, one election after the other in our country, more often than not, it either ends up in the pockets of people, individual leaders, governors, and everybody else who's there, in the pockets of what you call small clans, in the pockets of this, and a lot of it might even go in the form of corruption to the center. Because the president who's running for the government will need the support of all the regions in the country, so the center is not going to hold accountable to those fundings. So the point I'm trying to tell you is that in the Constitution, I support federalism. I support the devolution of what they call services and other resources. But there has to be structures in place that is so perfect that everybody is held accountable to his actions and her actions. Only then will you have the fairness on the ground. Only then will somebody be appreciated for his or her what they call character, as opposed to where he comes from, what section he belongs to, what madhab he has, whether he's a Sufi or whether he is this or that. I mean, those are the kind of things we have all over. So my advice to you is, I came in here, I'm going to give my own presentation. I think tomorrow is when I'm slotted. But I really felt that I must say something about the devolution and federalism and devolving power and resources to the periphery and how best it can be used only if there is a system in place that's going to make sure that it delivers. But if it's not there in place, then it perpetuates the corruption, it perpetuates the inequality that was there from the beginning, and that goes on and on. Thank you very much.